Tesla was clearly a big position in our portfolios over the past, but in our expert-led conversations, we have increasingly come to the conclusion that the manufacturing of electric vehicles as such is more and more commoditized, particularly as traditional OEMs are pushing ever further into this market and it's becoming more and more competitive. And so we think the innovation frontier has really shifted more towards battery manufacturing, battery chemistry, and battery cell innovations, as well as autonomous control innovations. And so that's where we are shifting our focus, and we are moving away from the manufacturing side of electric vehicles. And as such, Tesla is dropping out of the portfolio. Two other famous dropouts from the portfolio are Netflix and Spotify. We have updated our views on AI-based recommender systems and online streaming services. And while recommender systems are clearly still very much important, we believe that they are becoming increasingly commoditized, and we think marginal returns going forward will look less interesting than they have previously. And so as a result, Netflix and Spotify and other streaming and broadcasting oriented services and companies are dropping out of our focus areas in our portfolio. One interesting addition to the portfolio is the London Stock Exchange Group. It has recently acquired Refinitiv, which is a global leader in financial markets and infrastructure. And as a result, the Singularity score has increased, and LSE Group has become a key big data provider for the financial industry. Adobe is one of the big movers up in the portfolio. The score has increased as we now also capture its Experience Cloud business, which is an AI-based system that enables powerful brand experiences across channels, across e-commerce, and across marketing functions for a corporation. And so the score increases from around the 70s to 100%. There's also a number of changes within the Singularity sectors. For instance, in advanced materials, creating ingredients and flavors and solutions for texture that are needed for novel food are very important and are areas where a lot of innovation is happening. Here we see companies like International Flavors and Fragrances, but also Givaudan or Kerry Group. So on a high level, about 20% of the names in the Singularity Index have been replaced. In terms of weights, 10% of the weights are dropping out, and they are replaced with 6% in terms of weights for newcomers, the balance being adjustments in terms of overall weights and rebalancings in general. The two-sided turnover, i.e. sort of the refreshing of the portfolio, comes in at a 32% two-sided turnover. And what's also interesting to see is that the Singularity score of the portfolio, the weighted Singularity score, remains relatively high at 80%, which is a large spread compared to the score for the MSCI World, which is around 21%, and which has actually decreased from the beginning of the year when it was 27%. Finally, when we look at portfolio fundamentals, we continue to see a solid profile in terms of profitability and growth for sales and earnings. And we also continue to see healthy balance sheets for the portfolio and good liquidity ratios, and valuations clearly having come down year to date, which provides for more attractive entry points into a high quality portfolio. In terms of the portfolio structure with respect to traditional sectors, we remain about 50% exposed to the tech sector and 50% exposed outside of the tech sector, which is quite broadly diversified among the remaining sectors. Outside of the tech sector, we have a whole host of names, including Thermo Fisher, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, or we have industrials companies like Siemens, ABB, We have materials companies such as a Sika, or financials such as S&P 500. Our framework is constantly evolving. It's not set in stone. We evolve it according to our own research and mostly also according to conversations that we have with our think tank. And in the latest rounds of think tank discussions, we've come to the conclusion that it makes sense to reclassify a couple of sectors that we've had as standalone sectors and to also create a new sector. So two sectors that we have reclassified are, on the one hand, 3D printing and space on the other. If you think about 3D printing, it's really about additive manufacturing, and it is about the convergence of various Singularity sectors, including robotics, advanced materials, but also big data and artificial intelligence. And as an application, parts of it is commoditized, other areas are still very much interesting, but we find these areas are much better placed in existing sectors, and so we've rolled up 3D printing into existing sectors, mostly in advanced materials and in robotics. The other sector I've alluded to is space. If we look at space, the innovations pertain mostly in this area to network and connectivity. When we look at satellite, it's the propulsion and power systems of satellites and spacecrafts is actually less interesting. But what's much more interesting is the payload aspect of it. And so the communications payload of satellites is what we're interested in, and that very much is relevant for the IoT networking sector, and especially for next generation satellites and networking. What's more is we created a new sector called compute power. Compute power is really, in general, a fundamental enabling technology for many of the existing sectors that we have, including artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, IoT, you name it. And so we felt that it was better to create a new sector that these areas could stand their own ground and hold their own weight, and also to better track the developments that are happening in the developments of compute power. The sector covers chip manufacturers, it covers photolithography equipment makers, but also software that is used for chip design and testing.